The Nvidia 3070 Ti. I'm going to tell you when this GPU is coming and why it may actually be the best one we've had so far. So stay tuned. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. Some say that every time you subscribe and smash that like button, we get an additional variant of an existing GPU in order to make our lives a little bit harder when we can't find it anyway. So today we're going to talk about the 3070 Ti. Basically, the two big releases that are supposed to be coming up are going to be this GPU as well as the 3080 Ti, which according to the specs is going to be a pretty beastly GPU, but as we know, very low availability, and it's going to be very expensive. Even if it has a regular MSRP of like $999, we can expect it to be well over the price of what the 3090 used to cost. So the 3070 Ti is a very interesting GPU. We're going to talk about some things that are in favor of it and some things that you should potentially be aware of. First, the 3070 Ti, it's not going to be a tremendous amount more performant than the 3070, but I will say the 3070 is actually one of my favorite GPUs. It's actually a very efficient GPU. You can fit it in small cases. I've done small builds like in the NK Zen 1. The GPU, especially the Founders Edition, fits in really well. It doesn't really draw that much power, and it's generally very, very quiet. The performance you're getting out of it is similar to a 2080 Ti, which is still a great GPU. So having said that, the 3070 Ti definitely has a great foundation to be building upon with the 3070, but there will be some key differences. First, the VRAM is going to remain the same, 8 gigabytes of VRAM, but supposedly we're going to be getting the GDDR6X variant in the 3070 Ti. Now, this is both good and bad. One of the reasons why the 3070 performs so well, it runs pretty cool, even if you're gaming or even some people use it for mining, the VRAM definitely does not overheat anywhere near like the 3080 or 3090. That's going to be the first problem. GDDR6X runs very, very hot. It is faster, it's more performant, it really is great VRAM, but not only is it a good deal more expensive than the regular GDDR6, it also runs very hot. If you're doing something like ray tracing, even rendering for videos, and like we mentioned with mining, it really stresses the VRAM out. We have countless tales of 3080 and 3090 owners that basically reach 110 degrees T-junction temperature on their VRAM, and their GPU throttles like 40 and 50%. It's very significant. Then people have to change their thermal pads or water cool the GPU, so the 3070 Ti could be actually a great candidate for water cooling. Even the 3070 is already a GPU that there are EK water blocks existing for it. So the 3070 with that VRAM, even more important. Even EK, they made special blocks specifically for like the 3090 that has the VRAM on the back, you know, the GDDR6X. That way it helps to cool it. I've water cooled the 3090, and the drop in the VRAM temperature is pretty significant. Instead of throttling when it reaches 110 Celsius, now you generally can see it below 90 degrees Celsius, sometimes lower if you have a pretty big loop. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. 3070 Ti will perform better. That GDDR6X is going to be great even for content creators, probably going to be great for mining, as bad as that may seem for availability. I know people always have a sour spot, but we're talking about the enthusiast gamer that mines occasionally. We're not talking about big farms or anything like that that take away a lot of resources. Understandably, that certainly is a bit annoying, and that's where we're going to get to the next point. Aside from the GDDR6X, which is going to be a pretty big difference from the existing 3070, Nvidia may actually put some type of like a hash rate limiter on this GPU. So if you're planning to get this for mining, it may have something similar to what the 3060 supposedly had. But as we know, Nvidia sort of botched that whole maneuver. It was supposed to be maybe like half the hash rate, but they even released by accident, that they say, like a beta driver that supposedly opened up the performance again. It's something that's supposed to be tied with not only the software but the firmware. So we'll see if they have a little bit more a complicated procedure and if they actually follow through with implementing some type of a hash rate limiter on the 3070 Ti. The 3080 Ti supposedly is going to get the same treatment, of course, but primarily the 3070 Ti, certainly like the 3070, is a GPU that miners especially like to get, since it's cheaper than the other GPUs and it's supposedly pretty efficient for the performance that you get. So this, in my opinion, in the long term, probably ends up hurting gamers more than miners, really, because they have the resources to either get other GPUs or to find different workarounds. While let's say if a gamer buys a 3070 Ti, maybe he wants to use it on his off time when he's not gaming, to use it a little bit for casual mining. Prices are pretty high right now. I don't think we need to vilify the casual miner anymore. If anybody has a GPU already and they want to make a little side income, it's really not a bad deal. It's not like they're taking resources away from other gamers. It's different when we're talking about the massive operations that have like hundreds of GPUs or even 50 to 70 GPUs. Then you're definitely entering a whole different problem area. Those are resources that could be better spread out. But if we're talking about the casual gamer that has maybe 1 or 2 GPUs, now they can't use that 3070 Ti in order to pay for the higher cost and make some of that money back. It really ends up hurting that particular gamer. And that's going to be more important than ever to be able to pay it back, because as we know, MSRP prices are pretty much a farce. Like Nvidia $499 for a 3070. Basically, they're $1,300 or $1,400 for certain models right now on the secondhand market. If you get lucky and you get a drop before from like Best Buy, even Newegg now with their bundles, the prices are considerably higher. I even did a video before where the 3070 MSI Supreme was over $800. At the time, that seemed ridiculous to pay that much for a 3070, but considering what we know now about the secondhand market being, like I said, $1,300 to $1,400, that's a relative bargain. So expect the 3070 Ti to be priced very, very high. If $499 was the starting price for a 3070 Ti, I think $599 may be a little bit too low for an MSRP. I would imagine it probably has to be $699, and maybe they would bump up the price of the 3080, because a 3070 Ti, not only is it entering a new environment where GPUs are more expensive, it also does have the more expensive GDDR6X memory, so they could justify a higher price. But of course, that's going to push up the price of a 3080. But MSRP doesn't really matter. If the 3070 is already $1,300 to $1,400 on the secondhand market, and even from retailers, it's already $700, $800, you can expect the 3070 Ti to be very expensive as well. It'll be at least the price of the 3070 right now, but probably a little more, $100 to $200 more. What it may do is, if there's enough that they can produce, which is also something we'll talk about, probably not as likely, it may help to push the price down a little bit of the 3070, with one caveat. If it does end up having some type of hash rate limiter and the original 3070 continues at full performance in both gaming as well as in its hash rate, which is usually around like 60 or something like that with Ethereum when it's properly configured, if that's the case, 3070 may actually retain its value a little bit better than generally you would expect. And the 3070 Ti, if whatever Nvidia does is effective, we don't know if it's going to be effective, but if it is, then it's not going to be as attractive, because people may rather still get a 3070 if it's going to have a better hash rate. That's going to be something that as gamers we have to be aware of, because that's the environment that the GPUs are being used for. It's no longer just on frames per second. These are money generating little machines or little compute units. So we have to look at GPUs with a completely different perspective. Even if you're not mining yourself, you have to be aware of the mining performance, because that's going to dictate just how much people want to get them, what people are willing to pay for them. That's going to affect what you can actually get in the store, even if you're going to use it to play some cyberpunk and you're never going to touch any type of mining. So that's certainly going to be something to watch, that dynamic between the 3070 Ti and the 3070. I don't really think the 3070 Ti approaching 3080 performance or price is going to be a factor at all, simply because the 3080 is already so difficult to find and the secondhand prices are crazy, sometimes going up to $2,000, that I don't really think it's going to make much of a difference. People are still going to get whatever they can find. And if the 3070 Ti is newly released and there's actually a little bit more stock than other GPUs, then that's what's going to sell. Even if it has a hash rate limiter, even if it has a certain price increases, people are still going to go for it, because Nvidia is still a GPU that people really want. Now, AMD GPUs have also been very difficult to find. Of course, they've been great this generation. 6800, 6900, even the 6700 XT are all very nicely performing GPUs. Of course, ray tracing isn't quite there yet, but for most gamers, traditional rasterization is important. But AMD still has faltered in terms of availability. You can't really blame them, just like Nvidia. Demand has definitely been there, but some anecdotal evidence, every time recently that I've walked into a local micro center, you cannot find any Nvidia GPUs. They go pretty instantly the moment that they hit the shelves. But AMD GPUs have been staying on the shelves considerably longer. There were a couple, especially 6900 XT GPUs, that were basically in stock for like 3 or 4 days without anybody buying them. Now, we will mention that these were very highly priced MSRP. One of the 6900 XT Power Color GPUs was a whopping $24.99. So I don't think too many people really want to get a GPU that expensive. People thought that at $999, the 6900 XT seemed like a pretty good value proposition when it was initially announced, but now we're talking about pretty much almost triple the price for a GPU that, okay, sometimes it can be as good as a 3090, but it's not necessarily as good in most cases, and the 3090 sort of debuted at $14.99, so it's a hard pill for people to swallow. It still ended up selling after 3 or 4 days, so people will buy it, and that's MSRP. We're not even talking about any type of like a scalper price. That's from a store. Now, there are other 6900 XTs, which may be closer to $1,800 or $1,900, that aren't sort of a little bit more pumped up model, and even the 6800 XT is getting up there between $1,200 to $1,300. People, if they have a choice, they still rather do Nvidia, simply because not only does it still perform better in some games, Nvidia does have a little bit more history with gamers, but the prices that these AMD GPUs have gone up to, considering it's AMD's real first entry into the high-end market within the last few years. Of course, they've had high-end GPUs before, but this is the first time they're competing sort of with the big Nvidia GPUs. People are still a little hesitant to pay more than Nvidia for a GPU, so it's understandable why they may be in stock a little bit longer. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about the 3070 Ti. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.